Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. We are from Group 5. We present about legal aspect of halal food, which our group member is Nurul Aina Hanis binti Muhammad, Siti Asmida binti Husin, and Ainur Rafika binti Abdul Ghani.
First is the introduction. As we know, the consumption of halal food is a compulsory to all Muslims in this world. It is compulsory because it is the commandment from Allah for us to eat lawful food and avoid eating food that is prohibited to be eaten, which Allah commands is stated in the Surah Al-Baqarah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayuhan nasu kulu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiban wa la tattabi'u khutuwati syaitan innahu lakum aduwwum mubin. The meaning, O mankind, eat from whatever is on earth that is lawful and good, and do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 168. Nowadays, the development of halal food becomes wider due to high demand from Muslim and non-Muslim consumers toward halal food. This high demand is due to many people realize how the importance of consuming halal food is, because eating halal food can bring to a healthy life for their consumer. As the high demand of halal food product, there is also bring to the processors and halal food manufacturer responsibility to understand clearly what exactly the halal is, whether from Muslim manufacturer or non-Muslim. They need to comply to the Islamic principles and legislation related to halal food in order to produce halal food. This need to comply is to ensure the halal integrity of the food is preserved at all costs, because before it hands into the consumers.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So continue with our next slide. My name is Siti Asmida binti Hussein, and I will explain about literature review. Alright, the first literature review, which is the articles of regulating halal food consumption, explain that Malaysia government passed comprehensive laws to regulate halal food consumption. However, they also mention that a comprehensive law is futile without effective implementation of the law. Therefore, in this article, the author emphasized that the industry should comply with high ethical standard, as it is the vital as they beyond the obligation to be complied by industry in order to preserve the halal. The second literature review in the title of Laws and Regulation on Halal Production that was delivered by Noria Ramli. She has stated that legislation on halal production is very much needed for both manufacturers, which is Muslim and non-Muslim, in Malaysia, as the non-Muslim also produce food offered for sale. She also said that the Act will stand as a guidelines to all Muslim and non-Muslim food manufacturers. Next is according to the article that written by Zalina Zakaria and Siti Zubaida Ismail, stated that Malaysia is the only country in the world that has governmental regulations to penalize the violation of false halal description on product and service. Also, they explain that the Trade Description Act 2011 seems to provide a new features for protection and tighter enforcement against false trade description, including false halal description. So for the last literature review, which is I took from the article that study on application of false trade descriptions to halal food products, which is they indicates that the old and the amended law is Trade Description Act is required to ensure proper application of the Act as a tool to protect the halal logo, where the old law in Section 3 and the new Trade Description Act 2011 in Sections 5 only has a difference in number of imprisonment, which is from 6 to 5 years for the second offence, while the similarity between these acts is to guarantee the protection of the trademarks of halal logo.
Next, we go through the objective. We have three main objectives. which is the first objective is to study the general requirement of halal food product. The second objective is to examine the requirement of halal food product according to the related act. And the third objective is to analyze the issues in halal food according to legal aspect.
Next, I am Ainur Rafika binti Adugani. I will present the objective 1, the general requirement of halal food product.
General requirement is Malaysian standard from MS1500, which is halal food general requirement. MS1500 is a standard specifically developed to ensure only the halal food is produced. It contains necessary and minimum requirement for food to be considered as a halal. This standard also prescribes the necessary process, produce, and circumstances to certify that Muslims consume the halal food. Requirement that the standard is to be used together with food safety according to hazard analysis and critical control point, which is HACCP system, general principles of food hygiene and guidelines on good hygiene practice for small and medium-scale food industries towards HACCP. The requirement needed to comply in this Malaysian standard consists of management responsibility, premises and facility, devices, utensils, machines, processing aids and equipment, hygiene, sanitation and food safety, processing of halal food, storage, transportation, display, sale and servings of halal food, packaging and labeling, and the last one is legal requirements. Briefing of the requirement from one by one, which is the first is management responsibility. The management shall ensure that the halal integrity is preserved and foods are manufactured according to halal requirements. Next, the second is premises and facility, which is the premises shall be designed and constructed or renovated so as to enable the process flow to control the risk of product contamination and suitable for intended use. The third is devices, utensils, machines, processing aid and equipment. Devices, utensils, machine and processing aids used for processing halal food shall be designed and constructed to facilitate cleaning and shall not be made of or contain any materials that are decreed as najas by Sharia law and shall be used only for halal food. The fourth is hygiene, sanitation and food safety. Hygiene, sanitation and food safety are prerequisites in the preparation of halal food. It includes the various aspects of personal hygiene, clothing, devices, utensils, machines, and processing aids, and the premises for processing, manufacturing, and storage of food. Processing of halal food, which is contains sources of halal food from animals, land animals, aquatic animals, plants, microorganisms, minerals, and chemicals, beverages, genetically modified organisms, GMOs. The animals are halal and not najis al-mughalazah animals such as pigs and dogs, as well as their descendants. Next, the sixth is storage, transportation, display, sale, and servings of halal food. All halal food that are stored, transported, displayed, sold, or served shall be categorized and labeled halal, which is the transportation vehicle shall be dedicated and appropriate to the type of the halal food and satisfy hygiene and sanitation condition. Next, packaging and labeling. Halal food shall be suitably packed. Packaging materials shall be halal in nature and shall fulfill the following requirements, which is the packaging material shall not be made from any raw material that are decreed as najas by Sharia law. Last one is the legal requirements. All activities shall be other aspect, comply with legislation including other relevant requirements currently enforced in Malaysia or producing country. Next, we go through the second requirement, which is also Malaysian standard but MS2565 2014, which is halal packaging general guidelines. This standard prescribes the general guidelines in the manufacturing and handling of halal packaging. It serves a basic requirement for halal packaging for halal food products in Malaysia. Halal packaging do not contain any parts or products of animal that are non-halal by Sharia law, or any parts or products of animals which are not slaughtered according to the Sharia law. The packaging other than primary packaging, including secondary and tertiary packaging, shall be clearly defined with evidence of complying with Sharia requirements law. For halal packaging deemed to comply with this standard, it shall be comply with this requirement, which is management responsibility. The top management shall appoint Muslim halal executive or officer to establish a halal committee which is led by training Muslim personnel. The committee shall consist of at least one purchasing personnel, one production personnel, and 2/3 Muslim quorum. Is personnel and responsibility. The appointed personnel as state are qualified to establish and maintain a halal assurance system. The personnel shall be aware of the principles of halal and have received initial and continuous training relevant to their needs. Halal assurance system. The halal assurance system shall be appropriate for the manufacturing of halal packaging and shall be ensured that the packaging are designed and developed in a way that comply with the requirements of halal and good manufacturing practices. Training. The organization shall provide training for all personnel on the halal principles and its application. Continuous training shall be given and its practical effectiveness shall be periodically assessed. The training programs shall be available and approved by the halal committee or halal executive officer. All training records shall be kept. The documentation. The halal assurance system shall be documented, including evidence of materials origin, and shall be approved by halal executive officer or a committee which consists of Muslim personnel. Premises shall be designed and constructed or renovated so as to enable the process flow to control the risk of product contamination and suitable for intended use. The devices, utensil, machine and processing aid. Devices, utensil, machine and processing aid used for processing halal packaging shall be designed and constructed and shall not be made or contain any materials that are declared as najas by Sharia law. Hygiene, sanitation and safety, which is a prerequisite in manufacturing halal packaging. It includes the various aspects of personal hygiene, clothing, devices, utensils, machines, and processing aids, and the premises for processing, manufacturing, and storage of packaging materials. And the last one is storage, transportation, display, and sale of halal packaging, which is all halal packaging that are stored, transport, displayed, or for sale shall be segregated at every stage so as to prevent them from being mixed or contaminated with things that are non-halal. General requirements from Malaysian standard also is HACCP, which is MS 1480/2019, Food Safety According to Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point HACCP system. This Malaysian standard describes the requirements for food safety according to the Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point HACCP system. It is to ensure the safety of food during preparation until distribution for sale or supply in any sector of the food chain. In order to establish HACCP system, shall comply to this requirement, which is through management responsibility. The top management shall appoint Muslim halal executive or officer to establish a halal committee which is led by training Muslim personnel. For product description, a complete description of each food product shall be made to assist in the identification of all possible hazards associated with the product. For intended use of the product and potential consumers abuse, the intended use with regard to storage, preparation, and where appropriate serving shall be described. Preparation instructions and distinctive product labeling such as temperature and shelf life shall be clearly stated to reduce potential consumers abuse or unintended handling. The last is process flow diagram. The organization shall make available a comprehensive and actual description of the operation and establishment in the form of process flow diagrams. In order to establish HACCP system, the need to understand the principles of HACCP, which consists of 7 principles of HACCP, and how to use them to develop HACCP plan to identify, evaluate, and control food safety hazard. Next, in order to develop HACCP plan, need to develop and implement prerequisite programs, which is prerequisite program is to assist in controlling the food safety hazard. HACCP prerequisite programs consist of raw materials control, operational control, personal hygiene and training, building and equipment design, trace and recall procedure, pest control system, sanitation and maintenance, and waste and drainage control. We go through the Malaysian standard for GMP, which is MS1514 2019 Good Manufacturing Practice. This GMP follows the food chain from incoming materials to the customer, setting out the necessary hygiene conditions for producing food which is safe and suitable for consumption in food manufacturing. It also provides a guidance for specific codes which may be needed for sectors of the food chain processes to amplify the hygiene requirements specific to those areas. It is recommend an approach towards preparation for hazard analysis and critical control point HACCP implementation. The requirement for GMP consists of design and facilities, which is depending on the nature of the operations and the risks associated with them. Premises, equipment, and facilities should be located, designed, and constructed to ensure contamination is minimized. Next, the control of operation. Control of food hazard, key aspect of hygiene control system. Next, maintenance, cleaning and sanitation, to establish effective systems to ensure adequate and appropriate maintenance, cleaning and sanitization, control pests and manage waste. It consists of maintenance and cleaning, pest control system, and waste management. Next is the personal hygiene. It is to ensure those who come directly or indirectly into contact with food are not likely to contaminate food by maintaining an appropriate degree of personal cleanliness and behaving and operating in an appropriate manner. Next is transportation and distribution. It is to protect food from potential sources of contamination, protect food from damage likely to render the food unsuitable for consumption, and also provide an environment which effectively controls the growth of pathogenic food. And the last is product information, which it is to ensure the products bear appropriate information such as adequate and accessible information is available to the next person in the food chain. Okay, next we go through the next general requirement, which is from Manual Procedure for Malaysia Halal Certification, which is MPPHM. MPPHM is a reference document for halal certification, which is concurrently used together with the Malaysia Halal Standards. All applications for halal certificate shall be submitted online via My eHalal at www.halal.gov.my. The incomplete application will be automatically rejected by My eHalal. And for complete application, we receive a letter requesting payment for certification. The general requirement for MPPHM consists of the requirement for raw materials, which is the raw material must be ensured it comes from sources that are halal and safe. Next is the processing. Products applied should be produced consistently with updated production record. Animal hair is not allowed. Next, for packaging and labeling, every packaging label should be printed prominently, clearly, and indelible. The packaging shall be contain information according to the rules, act, and related standard. Next is factory. The factory compound shall be fenced or having a control mechanism to prevent pets or wild animals from entering or remain in the factory area. Other than that, equipment used shall be free from najas, any hazardous materials, and does not result in side effects to the product produced. Next, food premise. For food premise, equipment used shall be free from najas, does not contain any hazardous material, result in side effect to the product produced. The worker shall practice Code of Ethics and Good Hygienic Practices (GHP) as stated in the Food Hygiene Regulations 2009 and other related regulations. Workers shall wear proper and suitable attire. Next is sanitation system. It consists of environment, which is the environment shall be clean and its cleaning schedule shall be properly regulated and free from pollution. Next is the halal record. Applicants shall provide a proper file to keep related documents which can be referred to when inspection is conducted. And another is workers' basic amenities and welfare. The management shall provide basic amenities and ensure the workers' welfare is taken care of, including suitable praying area for Muslim, which is Muslim workers, the permission to perform daily fardu and Friday prayers, changing room, and pantry. And next is the training. The management shall ensure that all workers attended halal related training. Next is the specific requirement for food products, beverages, food supplement. The first is the basic reference, which is the basic reference must include MS1500, which is halal food general requirement. Then Food Act 1983, which is Food Regulations 1985 and Food Hygiene Regulations 2009. And next is National Fatwa Council, which is fatwa decreed by the states. Another specific requirement for food products, beverages, and food supplement is the management responsibilities. It is divided into three parts, which is from large and medium industry, small industry, and micro industry. For requirement for large and medium industry is the first one is have to establish internal halal committee and need appoint halal executive, appoint 2 Muslim workers, and establish halal assurance system with reference to MHMS Manual 2020, which is Malaysian Halal Management System. The next is small industry, which is must have at least minimum 1 Muslim worker. Halal supervisor shall be appointed on the premises, and ISH651 shall be established and implemented with reference to Malaysian Halal Management System Manual 2020. And the last is micro industry, which is at least with minimum 1 Muslim worker, and IHCS shall be established with reference to Malaysian Halal Management System Manual 2020. And the last general requirement for halal food product, which is from National Council for Islamic Religious Affairs Malaysia. The 48th Muzakarah of Fatwa Committee on the National Council for Islamic Religious Affairs Malaysia, which was held on April 3, 2000, discussed the guidelines on the production, handling, and storage of halal foods. The Muzakarah decided that first, Mechanical knife operators must be a Muslim. The operator should recite Bismillah before switching on the mechanical knife and observe the slaughtered animals. Second, a Muslim slaughterer who operates the mechanical knife could not leave the place of slaughter while slaughter is ongoing and could not make any other work that disturbs their focus from the slaughter process. And the third is the food industry is still bound to follow the national fatwa guidelines in producing halal and tayyiban products. The guidelines are important to smooth out the process of acquiring the halal certification and halal label from JAKIM.
Next, the fatwa related to halal food products are as follows, which is from Kedah Mufti Department 2013. The decisions that have been decided in the Muzakarah Fatwa Committee of the National Council for Islamic Religious Affairs Matters, which discussed the issue of alcohol in foods, drinks, fragrance, and medicines on 14 of 16 July 2011, agreed to decide that the first is soft drinks process made not for the purpose of producing liquors and having alcohol below 1% level could be taken, which is indifferent or harus. Next is soft drinks made with the intentions and the same way as the process of alcoholic fermentation, whether containing a lot or some alcohol is distilled alcohol is forbidden. And the third is for foods or beverages containing alcohol naturally, such as fruits, nuts, or cereals and their extracts, or any alcohol contained by them in the process of making food or drink is not unclean and could be eaten or drunk.
Next, I am Nurul Aina Hanis binti Muhammad and I would like to present about the requirement of halal food product according to the related act. The first of the requirement of halal food product according to the related act is Food Act 1983. Food Act 1983, which is an act to protect the public against health hazard and fraud in the preparation, sale and use of food and for matter incidental thereto or connected therewith. The Food Act 1983 be it enacted by the Sri Paduka Baginda Yang di-Pertuan Agong with the advice and consent of the Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara in the Parliament. Okay, the next is in this act it stated about the first is food. Food, that means the manufacturer sold or presented of use as food or drink for human consumption which enter use in the composition, preparation, preservation of any food or drink and includes confectionery. Next is food premise. Food premise, that means premise used for or in connection with the preparation, preservation, packaging, storage and other, which is distribution, sales, relabeling, reprocessing for any food. The next is label. Label, that means including any tag, brand, mark, pictorial or other descriptive matter, writing, printed, marked, painted and others. The next is package. Package, that means includes anything which is food is wholly or partly cased, covered, enclosed, contained, placed or otherwise packed in basket, trail or any kind of package. And for the preparation, it includes manufacture, packaging, processing and any form of treatment. And for the sale or sale, it's referred to sale for human consumption or use and include barter or exchange, offering or attempting to sell, causing or allowing to be sold, supplying any food where consideration is to be received by the supplier. The next slide is, in this act, it stated about the offense of Food Act 1983, which is the first is food containing substance injurious to health. That means any person who prepare or sell any food that has in any substance which is poisonous, harmful, that can injurious to health, and that commit an offense and shall be liable on conviction to be fined not exceeding 100,000 ringgit or to imprisonment of a term not exceeding 10 years or to both. For the purpose any food is injurious to health shall have be not only to the probable effect of the food on the health of a person consuming, but it also the probable cumulative effect of the food of substance the same composition on the health of person consuming the food in ordinary quantity. The next is food unfit for human consumption. It means any person who prepare or sell any food that consists wholly or in part of any disease, decomposed animal or vegetable substance, or any portion of animal unfit of food, or the product of animal which has died otherwise than by slaughter, and whether manufacturer or not, commit an offence and shall be liable on conviction to be fined not exceeding 50,000 ringgit or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 8 years or to both. Next, the Offence of Food Act 1983, which is prohibition against sale of food not of the nature, substance or quality demanded. That means any person who sell any food which is not of the nature, not of the substance or not of the quality of the food demanded by the purchaser commit an offence and it's liable on conviction to imprisonment of a term not exceeding 5 years or to fine or to both, which is the regulation made under this act contain provision prescribing the standard of any food or prohibiting the addition of any substance to food. The purchaser of the food shall, unless the contrary be proved, for the purpose food complying with the provision of regulation. The next slide of Offence of Food Act 1983, which is labeling not complying with standard of food. That means standard have been prescribed of any food. Any person who prepare, package, label any food which does not comply with the standard in such a manner that is likely to be mistaken for food of the prescribed standard commit an offence and is liable on conviction to imprisonment of a term not exceeding 3 years or to fine or to both. Next is false labeling. That means any person who prepare, package, label or sell any product in the manner that is false, misleading or deceptive as regard its character, nature, value, substance, quality, merit, safety, purity, weight, origin, or in contravention of any regulation made under this act, commits an offence and is liable to conviction, imprisonment of a term not exceeding 3 years or to fine or to both. And the last is sale by agent or sovereign. For the purpose of this act, be deemed be the agent of the importer, manufacturer, packer, farmer, person who prepare the food, or the owner of the right of the manufacturer or packer, or the agent to the agent of any of them, and each of those persons shall be under the same liability as that of the retailer or seller or the servant or agent as if he had himself effected the sale, unless the person proves that he could not have been responsible for such contravention. The second of the requirement of halal food product according to the related act is Food Hygiene Regulation 2009. Food Hygiene Regulation 2009 FHR is a regulation enacted according to Section 34 of the Food Act 1983 and was gazetted by the government on 28 February 2009. And this regulation provides an infrastructure to control the hygiene and safety of food sold in the country to protect public health. It also to ensure food premises are hygienic and satisfactory in terms of design and building. Next, to ensure food handler maintain personal hygiene and avoid practice that can contaminate food. After that, to ensure equipment and appliances used are suitable, clean and easy to clean. And the last is to provide for requirement of mandatory food safety assurance programs such as HACCP, GHP and GMP in food factories. For the next slide is about special requirement in handling, preparing, packing, serving, storing and selling of specific food in Food Hygiene Regulation 2009 that have subchapter, which is for chapter 1 is meat. For the preparation of meat, a food handler should prepare meat in food premise according with the following requirement, which is the area used for the preparation must be maintained clean and disinfected before and after the preparation on each working day. After that, the area or equipment that used for processing, which is cutting, deboning, to meat preparation, and this area must maintain the temperature below 15 degrees Celsius, and the frozen meat must store at the room or container that temperature below to minus 18 degrees Celsius. And any food handler who fail to comply with sub-regulation commit an offence and shall on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 10,000 ringgit or to imprisonment or a term not exceeding 2 years. Next, for the chapter 2 is fish, which is store of fish. A food handler shall store fish according the following requirement, which is a fresh fish must maintain at the temperature approaching of thawing ice. After that, a frozen fish must be kept at the temperature below to minus 18 degrees Celsius. For the frozen fish in brain, which is intended to be processed as canned food, must keep at the temperature below minus 9 degrees Celsius. And any food handler who fail to comply with sub-regulation commit an offence and shall on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 10,000 ringgit or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. And for the next slide is the chapter 3, which is ice cream. The preparation, package or sale of ice cream or frozen confection. A food handler should, during preparation, package and sale of ice cream and frozen confection, must ensure that open surface freezer is placed in a dust-proof room and freezer must protected from contamination. And any food handler who fails to comply with sub-regulation commit an offence and shall on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 10,000 ringgit or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. Next, for the chapter 4 is meat, which is sale of meat. That means any person who sell raw meat shall store the meat at a temperature below 4 degrees Celsius in a refrigeration. After that, any person who sell meat in a salad package shall comply with the requirement, which is not tempered with before sale and to be sold in original form, container and quantity in which it was received. And any person who fail to comply with sub-regulation commit an offence and shall on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 10,000 ringgit or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. Next, for the last slide is chapter 5, which is ice. Carry, store and delivery of ice. That means any person who sell ice should carry in a vehicle able to protect the ice from contamination. After that, carry, store and delivery the ice in clean container and cover it to prevent any contamination, and also ensure the equipment able to protect ice from any contamination. And any person who fails to comply with sub-regulation commit an offence and shall on conviction be able to a fine not exceeding 2,000 ringgit or to imprisonment or a term not exceeding 2 years. And for the last chapter is chapter 6, which is food vending machine. That means the owner or operator of a food vending machine should comply with the requirement, which is ensure food vending machine is kept in a good working order and condition, and also keep in clean and sanitary condition and free from pests. Besides that, food vending machine is used exclusively for the sale of food and located in clean area, and also provided with waste container. And if dispenses perishable food, it is equipped with a temperature control device. Any owner or operator of food vending machine who fails to comply with sub-regulation commits an offence and shall on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 10,000 ringgit or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. That's all from me. Thank you.
Alright, we already done with the objective 1 and 2. So right now, I will explain about objective 3 that we discuss issue that happened and related with the halal legal. So the first issue that related was happened recently in 7 December in this year, where the drinking water products are be revoked after it's confirmed contains the bacteria. Alright, this happened to the packaged drinking water AMB products by Meadows that under Malaysian products and has been withdrawn from the Singapore market. Okay, according to the Singapore Food Agency, the drinking water been revoked from market after it's confirmed contained the bacteria named Pseudomonas aeruginosa that can be found in water, feces, sewage, and soil, which is this bacteria can cause various type of disease infections in humans, especially those with a low immune system. And in Islam, everything that can bring harm to the human cannot be consumed. Therefore, our Directors of Food Safety and Quality, which is Mr. Salim, stressed that the AMB products must comply with Regulation 360B, Food Regulations 1985 under the Food Act 1983, under Section 13 of the Food Act 1983, and stipulates that any person who prepares or sells any food that contains any substance that is poisonous, damaging, or otherwise harmful to health is guilty of an offence. When convicted, the offence can be fined not more than 100,000 or jail for a term not exceeding 10 years or both. Continue with the second issue. The second issue occurred in Bukit Mertajam on 22 October 2020, where premise that produced soy sauce was dirty conditions and using the halal logo without permission. Okay, this occurred when the raid from the authorities found that the premise, which is produced the halal soy sauce, had been involved in the offences where the offences committed are major offence, such as the housing premises being used as a soybean processing plant, unsafe building structures, storage of food stuff, and unsafe soy sauce bin, moldy appliance, and also the discovery of rat dropping and larva breeding. Okay, the investigation also found that the halal logo and the scheme Persijilan Makanan Selamat Tanggungjawab Industri, which is MESTI, were used without the permission of the authorities. Because of that offences, the premise is ordered to close for 14 days. The closure of the 14-day maximum premise was done under Section 11 of the Food Act 1983, Food Regulations 1985, and the Food Hygiene Regulation 2009. Okay, therefore, this premise received two notices with a compound value or 5,500 ringgit. Other than that, another compound was issued by KPD and HEP for offences under the trade description, halal certification and marking, Order 2011 for using the halal logo without permission. The last issue is about confiscation that has been done by KPD and HEP on 2019 to the two premises that located in Ipoh Perak after they used the expired halal logo. The first premise was the Indian premise that exhibit the halal logo that has been expired. According to the initial inspection and the evidence given by the representative of the premise, he stated that the premise had a Malaysian halal certification only until December 2017. However, the renewal of the halal certificate period failed to be obtained because the restaurant or the premise did not meet the conditions set by the Perak Islamic Religious Department. Meanwhile, the second premise is the frozen food supplier premise, where they also use expired halal certification. Based on the investigation by the authorities, the result indicates that the premise is running repackaging a business on mutton or goat meat by displaying the Malaysian halal logo. And preliminary confirmation by Jaib officials stated that the company had expired in March 2010. Therefore, these two cases was investigated under Section 16 in brackets 1 of the Trade Description Act 2011, which is, if convicted, could result in a fine of up to 1 million ringgit. For the conclusion in this discussion, we may conclude that the halal food is sensitive and serious matter to Muslim, as its commandment from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala for us to look for the halal and tayyiban thing in this world. Therefore, in Malaysia, the halal matter is very being emphasized by the government, as the halal law in Malaysia have been legislated for the past 40 years, which is from humble beginnings, Trade Description Order 1975 to standardizations, Malaysia Standard 1500 2009, and current law, which is Trade Description Act 2011. However, the issues that related to the halal is increasing day by day, and indicates that the authority have to be more active in terms of implementing their power for the effective execution of halal laws. Because with the halal law or the legal, it seems that it can help the government to give the lessons for the parties that misuse the terms of halal to gain the profit. Nevertheless, in case of enforcement of halal law, there will always be a need for some coordinations of the authorities in terms of effective enforcement of halal issue to meet developing and offense and expected problem.